You're welcome to LearnPod. Our lesson today is on formatting text in HTML, and our objective will be to know how to use the style attribute to format text, that is by changing the color, the alignment, width, height, font, and all sorts of things like that. We create an HTML file and we save it as text.html. Remember, in this lesson, we want to learn all about how to format the text of HTML elements. Let's put in our HTML boilerplate code, and in this title, this is text. Of course, that's the title, text and text formatting. Now, in the body, we just put in the p tag and we just say I am a paragraph, and then we save. The next is to view, to open in a browser. On opening it in a browser, we see this, it appears quite okay. But then back to our code. Right here, remember, we can add the style attribute. In the style attribute, we can now start by changing the color, for example, and say red. The color is red. We can change the background. We can change the background by specifying it to be black. Change the background, specify it to be black. Now take note that the p tag extends all the way through. The p tag is a block level element because it takes the whole width available for it. Okay, good. Now the other thing we could change is the font size. We could change the font size by specifying, let's say, 15px, the font size, and then we reload, and that's it. 15px, I think that's smaller. I want to change it to 35px. So that's much bigger now, 35px. So we see that we can change the font size. One other thing we can change is the font family. The font family, we can use sans serif, and when we go back to the browser to reload, so you see it changes. Probably the change is not so noticeable, so I'm just going to revert to the font it was before. Now you see, then I go back to the code, and then I make it sans serif again, and then I come back to reload. So you can see there's a change in how the font looks like. I want to just change the font family now to Georgia. I want to change it to Georgia. So changing the font family to Georgia, take a look and see how it changes. Good, this is Georgia. Or I could just change the font family to there's a very nice font there, that's a Comic Sans. Comic Sans, okay, Comic Sans, and then we go to the browser to reload. It is Comic Sans MS, and then going back to the browser, we now reload, and that's it, Comic Sans MS. So that's how to change the font styling for of the text of HTML elements. Next up, now we could change the text align. Next up, we could change the line. We could change the text align and make it text align center. Okay, center. We reload, and then it comes to the center right here, and this is a very, very good thing. Or we could just make it right to be aligned to the right. Now it is aligned to the right. Okay, that's very good. Now it's time to look at border. we want to take a look at the border. So this one says I am in a bordered element. Okay, so we give it star just as the same. So we say border. This how to specify the border 2px solid. Maybe, well, let's just make it yellow. So we specify the border to be yellow. We reload. Oh, good. So you can see it has a yellow border, but let's just make it something like brown. We make it brown, and then it's cool. Good, that's brown. So which means when you want to create an HTML element that has a border, all you have to do is just give it style attributes, and then the property is border, and this is how you specify it. Now, something interesting about border, that's what we want to do now. Instead of the solid, you could just change it to dashed. You change it to dashed, so you see it dashed. Instead of the dash, you could just change it to dotted. You change it to dotted, so you can see this is actually quite beautiful, which means you have different options of how you want to style the border of your HTML elements. That's all about border, but there is something about background color that we also need to talk about. So let's create another element. So this one is for I have a background. I have a background, so I'm just going to give it the style attribute. The style attribute. Okay, now you would ask, there is something here I want us to see. This is background, so we could just say black. So good. Then we reload. Okay, we need to give it color white so that the text inside shows up. The text is also black, the background is black, that's why it is not showing. Okay, good. I have a background, so you can see it has a black background, but come to think of it, in the first one we use background color, and the second one we just use background. Come on, what is happening? Well, it's just the way the browser understands things. The browser, in this case, you're giving it the direct property to use, which is the background color. So it set the background color to black. But in this case, using background, the border first checks if you are giving it an image. If not, then it sets it as a color. I would always advise you to make use of background, because it's advisable just to make use of background. Quite much advisable. Alright, that's the end of this video. We'll get to some other lesson in the next videos.